I'm David. I have an anaplastic astrocytoma grade 3. I live in London and Berlin. I was diagnosed originally in 1997. That is, I had some scans there for some episodes that I was having, which seemed like they could be epilepsy or could be anxiety. And there were some lesions seen on the scans, and it was thought possibly brain tumour, possibly not. So I had a few more scans until eventually there was some growth seen, and my neurologist thought probably as a brain tumour I should have an operation. In a way I was quite relieved because I knew there was something wrong with me. At first it was assumed it could be psychological, and I was pretty sure it wasn't. And the worry of not knowing what it was worse than having a diagnosis. When it was pretty sure that it was a brain tumour because it was growing, I went to see the surgeon the next day, and it was in Germany and they moved pretty fast there, and he asked me if I wanted to have the operation the next day. So I said I'd like to go home and get my toothbrush and say goodbye to my cat, things like that. There wasn't really any time. I just thought the sooner the better. I don't want it hanging over me. Or it was 2000 when it was decided it was definitely a brain tumour, at which point I had a debulking operation. The debulking is a craniotomy, so a brain operation where they take away a piece of your skull, go inside with a knife or however they do it now, and take a piece of the tumour out as much as they can get, and then replace the piece of skull, let it heal, and then generally do a biopsy of the piece of tumour that they've got, see what type of tumour it is. After that I had years of being reasonably well, having seizures, having headaches, but having a full life, working full time. And when it did come back, I noticed I was having more seizures. Went to the doctor, had more scans, had another operation, another biopsy. The biopsy showed that it had indeed gone up to a grade 3 astrocytoma, otherwise known as an anaplastic astrocytoma. And I knew that I'd have to have radiotherapy. I knew it would give me some long-lasting brain damage. I was told it would affect my short-term memory and concentration, which were already not great. So I was very wary of having it, and it took me, I think, about a year to agree to have it and a few more scans to be sure. Eventually I did, and going through it was actually a doddle. It was 6 weeks to the hospital every day, which was a bit annoying, but completely painless. Felt okay up until towards the end when I got very tired. I was on a very high dose of steroids. I got steroid-induced diabetes. I put on an enormous amount of weight, about 3 stone. My face blew up. I looked like a moomin. I had to deal with my friends' reactions to my change in appearance, which was very difficult. And big forced smiles and horrified eyes. And yeah, that was actually the most difficult time to date. I was happy when it was over, but a few months later, unfortunately, there was some recurrence, and I thought, well, okay, I'll do chemotherapy again. I put it off for a while, did a few scans to be sure. There was definitely some recurrence happening. Very few. I mean, for me, it was about the radiotherapy and about the steroids. The chemotherapy, I felt sick the first time I took it because I was on very weak antiemetic drugs, which I think is what they normally start you on. But as soon as I'd got the stronger ones, I felt weaker, and every time I felt like I was getting a cold, I had to go to the hospital and have my blood checked, make sure that the blood cells, the amount of white blood cells and red blood cells were all in order. But actually I found the temozolomide chemotherapy very easy to tolerate. I didn't lose any hair during the temozolomide. I don't believe most people do. I lost hair during radiotherapy, most of it, except a few attractive little tufts on top. But thankfully most of it grew back. I do still have some loss at the back and some slightly thinner hair, which I'm not too happy about. But it's at the back. I'm 37. It's about time that I lost some hair anyway, so it's not the end of the world. At the beginning, it was quite difficult. because I typed in my diagnosis into the internet and saw the statistics didn't look great, but then I had to take it a bit further. Spoke to my doctor about that immediately. They managed to explain the statistics to me, that age affects things, that the statistics are sometimes out of date. Research has been a lot of different things. Been talking to people, sometimes at the brain tumour charity days, and reading books. As I say, it's helped me a lot. I think it's the reason I've been around so long. It's because I've found out so much myself and been able to control the situation. I think in the long term it's definitely empowerment. Of course, sometimes it's negative. You read things and then you read that it's not true, or you read things that you don't want to know, things that are maybe harmful to you, that you've been doing all your life, and possibly harmful to brain tumours, or could even be the cause of a brain tumour. So again, it's emotional, it's very up and down, but it's I think very rewarding. I think it's in the long run had a very positive effect, at least on my outlook, on my psychological state. I've lived every day like it's the last. I've been grateful for every day that I'm well. I've been very, very aware of how transient life is and tried to make the most of it. Obviously, there's some suffering involved, and that's very hard to deal with sometimes. But even that, sometimes you have a flu and you have a high fever, and you think, well, you know what, that's worse than most of the symptoms that I go through. So it doesn't all have to be as bad as as one sometimes imagines. Of course, in many ways. I mean, you adopt a sense of humour about life because it suddenly seems, the little things seem ridiculous anyway. But also a gallows sense of humour about, life and death really helps. And I think it affects people very differently. Some people go into denial, which is fine. It's a way of coping, if not really a way of dealing with it. Some people, they want to talk about it and do. Some people, they want to talk about it but don't know what they should really say. There are all sorts of different responses. The most difficult time for other people was actually when I was in treatment, and after the radiotherapy and the steroids, when I changed physically, even though that was actually the treatment that was helping me get better. I mean, I'm lucky to have had the same partner since I was 19, which is 18 years now, and he was with me, of course, the whole way. I think sometimes it's probably harder for the other person than it is for the patient, because the patient has no choice. You have to get on with it, one way or another. Whereas the partner, they don't know how to be supportive sometimes. So they don't know whether it's good to take a leading role or or a backseat role, and I think it's probably very difficult for them. But it's also enriched the relationship because you don't know how much time you have, which of course none of us do. But you try not to waste time, I think, having arguments or whatever, and you concentrate on quality time. And there's a couple of feelings. One of them is guilt, sort of survivor guilt, and friends don't often understand that because they think, well, it's already terrible enough that you have a brain tumour, but then I see myself, sitting here 15 years down the line, feeling well, looking okay, blabbing on about my brain tumour, and they've maybe managed a year, become very ill very quickly, and died in very difficult circumstances. So there's guilt, and there's also fear that I could be the next one to go, and a slight relief that it was them this time, not me, which is awful, but I think it goes through most people's heads that gratitude, I suppose, rather than relief, that it's not your turn yet, and that it puts things in perspective. Your own issues and symptoms all suddenly seem not quite as bad. The People I've come in contact with must be about 7 or 8 people so far, have all been absolutely amazing and inspiring and very caring. Despite me not having been someone who called up for help, I've been constantly offered support and help in case I want to talk to somebody or need something. You know, for me it's really been about the information days so far, or support days, and getting to know other people and support they've given me. So I think it's a wonderful thing, and I hope that it continues for a long time.